Will and Harper is going to be on Netflix. I think by the time you hear this, it'll probably just be coming out. I think it's coming out this Friday, the 27th, if I'm correct. Hopefully, I'm right. Or maybe it's going to the theaters first for a little bit. I don't think so, though. I think it's going to go pretty much to Netflix. Will and Harper, directed by Josh Greenbaum. Josh Greenbaum, I've looked up, and I think they've done a few movies, mostly like comedies. I think they did like Barb and Star, Go to Vista Del Mar, and some other things. So, mostly known for comedy. This is a documentary, and it's got a bit of buzz, mostly because of the names involved. Obviously, the most famous name is going to be Will Ferrell. So, what is the basic concept of this? The concept is this documentary is that Will Ferrell, a few years ago, I think I don't remember what day. I didn't write down the actual year, but I'm going to say it was, it was like during the end of the pandemic kind of era, or during the pandemic. Will got a note, and a bunch of friends of this person got the note from um, Harper, previously known as Andrew Steele. I just want to make sure I know. Harper basically saying to their friends that they have kind of finally come to the decision that they are going to transition. And this person, Harper's like 60 something, so pretty late in life to be transitioning, but something the person has been, considering and working through years and years and years and years and years. And they kind of point out that basically Harper has been friends with Will Ferrell for 30 years, since early SNL. And they were kind of, Harper was a writer for mostly for SNL, but for other stuff too. But and was involved with a ton of the things that basically made Will Ferrell famous. A lot of the skits and a lot of the movies. And Harper was a writer for a lot of that stuff. So they kind of had a real simpatico kind of sense of comedy and sense of humor and stuff. So they really, really got along well. And Harper also had this great, like, Harper's around, so I'm not saying past tense, but in the past, Harper always had shown a great interest also in just kind of traveling around the United States, just traveling and going to the weird hole in the wall kind of places, and just meeting people and just doing stuff, kind of Andrew Bourdain kind of stuff, right? Not filming it, but just loved going out and just seeing like the real people in the real places in weird little spots in the U.S. Just kind of loved that kind of hit the road and meet the people on the ground kind of a thing, right? Basically, the idea they transitioned, they essentially come up with this idea that Will and Harper decide they're going to make a cross country trip and go to some of these places that Harper loves. But now that Harper's transitioned, Harper's like, how will it be? Like, will I be accepted? Will I feel uncomfortable even going there anymore? So in a sense, Harper's kind of saying like, I'm afraid to go out in the world this way. I don't feel comfortable, but I want to. And I hope I haven't lost kind of a big part of my life, but that by using Will as kind of a shield, as kind of a safety blanket, I can go to these places and at least, dip my toe in and have this kind of, fame blanket next to me, right? So that's kind of the approach. The whole movie, though, is it's I keep want to say gentle. The approach is very kind and gentle. It's like it isn't attacking. It isn't either side. It's more like you're seeing Harper basically dip her toes into the world as Harper in a way that hopefully will not be too scary. And in that sense, Will Ferrell is very gentle back. And if, is there a staginess to it? Well, somewhat, because obviously every place they go, here's Will Ferrell and there's a camera. So obviously that's going to affect where they go. Are people going to be overall nicer and a little less in your face, especially on the negative side? Probably. So is it absolutely reality in that sense? Probably not. But the stuff between Will and Harper, nonetheless, I think is valuable, because I think the stuff that's between them, and a lot of it is just, like Harper and Will going to Harper's mom's house, and they're talking about what he was like when he was he as a boy, and how he, quote, never felt like that, and how he was. There's just some really interesting moments, like how society basically beat the boy into him. You know what I mean? When that's not what he really was feeling. And the fact, obviously, this is such a huge hot button societal issue right now, and how so many people really have it in their guts to just attack on this subject for no reason. Oh, there's reasons. Oh, okay, I can hear the other side out there. You know, this movie, I think what it does best is it shows two people who have known each other for years, who love each other's company, who are just kind of going through this together. And in a sense, they're letting Will, and they're letting Will be kind of the everyday person who maybe doesn't quite understand or doesn't quite feel comfortable with transitioning and just the whole thing, and like doesn't know what to ask, doesn't know how to talk. Because Harper's so comfortable with Will, it's okay. And it actually helps work through that. Whereas if it's some Joe Blow off the street that walks up and just says, like, what the hell are you? Or that kind of a thing, that's a whole different story, right? Because then you're looking at a person who's essentially coming at you with attack in their eyes. Um, Great moments in this, some really heartwarming moments. There's a great running bit. So early on, they're like, we need a theme song, you know. Of course, they're constantly meeting different people from SNL because they've known them forever. They're having little cameos throughout this movie, which is fine. It's not needed, but it kind of gets it that little star power, of course, and is going to draw some people through that wouldn't have enough just with Will and Harper. But there's this great thing where about, I don't know, a third of the way in, they call Kristen Wiig and they're like, we need a theme song. And there's a whole little joke around it. Of course, they're creating a joke, like it's got to be jazzy and it's got to be, emotional, but it's also got to be funny. And so basically they ask her the impossible to basically make this a great theme song for this show. And all through the movie, they're calling her and like, no pressure, but we're almost done with this trip. You better get it to us. And she's just doesn't have anything for him. And then that will pay off in the closing credits. You're going to hear the song she made, and that's pretty great, kind of fun wrap around in this movie. And there's a lot of great moments. And once again, I think just discovering it, I think it's satisfying as a road trip. It's satisfying as an emotional friendship journey. And I think it's also satisfying on a political, a political hot button issue, sort of a more, like I said, a more honest, frank, and really understanding, really empathetic kind of discussion of what it means to feel like the other and feel like the outsider, and to try to be accepted and feel safe in the world. And I think that's a huge issue for a lot of people, especially in the current climate we have right now. So I give this movie, I wonder if Eric or Greg saw this. I think Greg was considering it. I bet you he'll give it at least 4 stars. I mean, I'm kind of between 4 and 4.5. I think I'm going to go 4.5 stars in this, because I think just the work it's doing is so important that I'm going to half star it up. I think as just the movie itself, it's probably like 4 stars, but this is such an easy movie to see too. It's so accessible, which I think is really important for something like this. This is something that could easily be lost in just like a indie movie that never sees any light anywhere. But being on Netflix, hopefully it will get more light and having a name attached to it. And I think this is the kind of movie that could actually help people, because, and Eric talks about this a lot, when it's a real hot button, controversial issue, the movie that makes it for whatever side, usually the side you want to draw in is never going to watch the movie, so it will actually never have the effect you want. This movie could, because I think it's approachable for mom and pop America, and it's got people a lot of people will like come and say, well, I like Will Ferrell because I liked him in this or I liked him in that. Even if you don't like his comedy, it's like, oh, seems like a nice dude, and it's presented in a way that's not super threatening to people who are very scared of that kind of stuff. So I think this movie could actually do what you want to do, and that is get people who aren't comfortable or don't understand or feel really pushed off by the idea of trans rights and so on and so forth, to actually look at a human being and maybe get something out of that.